middle school, high school, I would put my Bible like in front of my desktop, and be like, okay, this is going to keep me from being tempted.
Remember, I thought this was impossible, and I was willing to be okay with that. Welcome to another Men of Iron podcast. At Men of Iron, we are here to change a culture one man at a time. And you know what? You can help with that. Go to menofiron.org/donate to help with our mission. Today, we're going to be talking about how sexual addiction rewires your brain.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Justin? How does sexual addiction rewire our brain?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get into this all month long, our own stories, but, just jumping right into, like, getting on the table. For me, I was exposed to pornography when I was in second grade, and I can tell you I went in and out for years, and I would define it as an addiction for up until and through the beginning of post-college. And I know for me, it created one, and we'll get in, I know you got all the science behind it, but I've seen it as well, the chemical dependency that it creates. And this goes back to design, right? That God designed us for intimacy and connection. And so the way it's been sadly broken is that those good designs for building chemical dependency and patterns and habits that build intimacy within a healthy relationship, pornography, sexual addiction, lust, all those things that break that and create those same habits towards unhealthy things. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I know that throughout really that's decades. Decades of my life. I'm going to be 40 this year. Decades of my life were built around these chemical dependencies and habits and patterns that I was going to and finding in the thrill of visual stimulation and all the things that go along with that. So, I don't know. That's just for me. That was that. So when there was a stress or a trigger, there's a physiological desire and need to fill that, which again designed for good within healthy marriage relationships. When it's broken in terms of pornography and lust outside of those bounds, then it becomes something that's unhealthy and really damaging. So that's what I think of it.
Yeah.
That was the question you asked.
Well, I think it's great that you're willing to be transparent. And, we have 4 series, we have 4 episodes we're going to be doing. And the one thing I really felt, God was speaking to me was, transparency is important here. Because, a lot of men that are going to be listening to this are struggling. Mm-hmm. And I think this is close to my heart because I struggled with sexual addiction for a very long time. So this is something I'm very adamant about. But it's also one of those things, like sometimes you could be like embarrassed to admit it, but I'm also like, how if we've gotten through it, if we've got victory over it, how do you not share that for what God did? Like, how do we just say, hey, you know what? I don't want anybody to know this, that this was part of my past. Yeah. But, so I think it's important for who is listening right now, for this is specifically to the men that are saying, I don't see any hope. I don't see any possibility. I want to make this statement that there was a time in my life where I said verbally, I don't believe there is freedom from this. And I believed it. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I believe in God, the Bible, and all the things that God can do. But I started rationalizing it like, hey, maybe this was Paul's thorn in his side. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's grace, and this is just never going to stop. Mm-hmm. And whether it's with different partners, whether it's with videos or so many different forms of sexual addiction, there is freedom, and I honestly didn't believe it at one time, and sometimes I still don't believe that there's freedom, but it was a process, and I just want the person or the men who are listening to know that it really is possible. Mm-hmm. So, and I think I just want to share like two reasons that, or 2 applications, I would say, the biggest things that helped me to get through it. So one is knowing the science behind it. And I know at certain points in the podcast, there are going to be certain people that are going to say, but God, but prayer. I get it. But we cannot just rely completely on that. There is information out there. God gave us brains, right? These brains are amazing, and to understand them is part of healing. So when we say rewiring the brain, this is not a thought of, yeah, it probably does that. No, this is proven science that sexual addiction actually changes your brain. So there was a doctor who came up with this saying, neurons that fire together wire together. And this was back in 1940s, 1942 maybe. And the whole idea was that when we continue in the same addiction, the same pattern, the neurons actually form in that direction and create a real, visible path in your brain. So if you think that by white knuckling it or whatever you've come up with of ways that isn't working, it's not going to work. There's something that has to be redone, rewired.
Yeah.
I think that knowledge to me was like, okay, this is a little more serious than I thought. Mm-hmm. So if we talk about rewiring, I think the best image that helped me, that comes to mind, is for years and years, you said you struggled for years, I struggled for years and years, I am cutting this path through this forest. I'm knocking down trees. Before you know it, it's just down to grass. I'm taking the grass out. Now it's just dirt. Now there's just a big rut in the ground. And it's an obvious path. If water were to pour, it would go right into that path. Nowhere else. It would just follow that, right? Well, I'm trying to go over here, away from that. The problem with trying to go over here, there's no path over there. Mm. There's tons of trees and rocks and all sorts of obstacles because I've never established a path that way. So to rewire is to go away from traveling this path and to start beating down this path, to start taking things out. And the first thing is, I believe, is knowledge to understand that we need to do that.
Yeah. I mean, just like we said, like the very beginning, we have been designed, like you said, God has designed our brain to respond to these chemical changes and reactions, dopamine, all the things, and brain scans of people with addiction to drugs, alcohol, and pornography, lust, sexual addiction. I mean, they're very similar because our brains start to depend on that high that's given from those moments and those experiences, which again, in the healthy context of a committed marriage relationship, where that's something that's supposed to bring two people together and keep them together with intimacy and enjoyment and fulfillment, like all those things. When they're broken outside there, like so yeah, God created it to be a strong bond. He created it to be something that's effective. So when we take it in our own hands and we make those ruts, those patterns outside of that design, it's a strong thing that has to be intentionally worked on. And it's not just, I remember there were times, again, so elementary school, first time I was exposed to pornography, and it was like instant, like I was hooked. Like I remember the context of that evening. It was at a buddy's sleepover, and I remember he showed something on the TV that caught, like I was, and then it was kind of, he was off and doing other things, and I was hooked. Like right. I was immediately involved in that, and going through, again, knew the Lord from a very early age as well, and so it wasn't like, oh, like I was off on the dark side. Mm-hmm. Like, no, I knew the Lord the whole time and always was trying to fight it. And I remember doing things like, I remember in middle school, high school, I would put my Bible like in front of my desktop, and be like, okay, this is going to keep me from being tempted. And then going, why is this not working? Like, because I was not aware of, especially in middle school, high school, like I wasn't aware of, okay, there's something more than just this is a spiritual battle.
Right.
And again, you're not saying it's not.
Right.
We're not saying it's not. It's a spiritual battle, but along with that is a physiological battle. There's a relational battle. Like there's a lot of pieces that go into this, and it's holistic. And I think that also hopefully does bring, I think, hope. Because to me, I was like, wow, I'm failing at this. And I am praying, and so God is failing at this. God is failing me. There were times when I felt that he was leaving me out to dry, right? That he's not coming through. I'm coming to him. I don't want to do this. I don't want to struggle with this. Got the Bible literally on the desktop. Why am I still going this route?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's actually, it can bring, like you said, hope for those that are going, man, I can't do this.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you may not actually have the full picture in terms of what that looks like.
That's right. A couple things come to mind. So one thing we want to preface this with, I'm not a doctor, psychiatrist, and this is such a big subject to try to do in a, even for podcasts. It's really not possible. So there's a lot of information that could be gained outside, and I really would encourage you to do some research on that. But you mentioned dopamine, and like if someone doesn't even know what that is, I think most people are somewhat familiar. But if not, like that alone, understanding that our brain is looking for reward, and we've trained it where to go for reward, and coincidentally, I had a conversation this morning with someone, and they say the words, trauma builds walls. And a lot of this does come back also to trauma. And if trauma doesn't fit for you, then maybe voids that we're trying to fill. So I think a big part is educating ourselves, and understanding the science behind it, but also understand, is there a trauma? Are we comforting ourselves from something that we need to first identify and then deal with? Because if not, if we don't identify that wall, we just keep running into it. So I think we have to look back as well and just see why do we keep going there? What are we seeking comfort from?
Yeah, I think that's good, because there's a lot of things that go into that, whether it's a trauma in your own life, like from that you have to dig up and kind of go back to and explore more, or it's just things on the regular that you're either avoiding and not really addressing. Because there's usually, like you said, there's something that we're going after to fill that void for. And so what is that, and what's keeping us from choosing healthy things? And so I think you're right. Like, what is identifying that root cause? As well as along with that is triggers. Like, what are the things that then trigger me to go to that unhealthy dopamine hit and thrill, escape, whatever it is? What are those triggers?
Right,
so,
identifying those.
And there's a lot of them that are pretty common.
Yeah.
Like stress is an easy one. Okay, stress is the opposite of what my brain wants me to fire towards, dopamine and comfort and things like that. So like when stress happens at work, at home, relationships, how do I feel that? Like now, what's a healthy way to do that, and what's an unhealthy way? Hunger, when we're hungry, tired, right? Those are things when we're weaker in our like mental faculties and capacities to see things clearer.
Yeah.
That's another way. Like, man, if you're stressed and you're tired and you're hungry and you're like worn down, it's a lot harder to see and be aware of those root issues as well as the triggers that are in front of you. It's a lot easier to just go for the thing that's easy, quick, and I know it works and my brain wants it. Yeah. And so there's a lot to it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. The second part of it, so like I told you, right, it's something that's very close to my heart. It's almost, I'm so passionate about it and would love to help other men with this. And it was a long process, and which again I thought was impossible. So remember, I thought this was impossible, and I was willing to be okay with that. Now I know it's not, and sometimes I go, I know this was God. There's zero question God was involved. First of all, I wanted to do this to please Him. So like just to start, it's something that was revealed to me, because I wanted to please God. So I identified this as an issue. Or else otherwise you could say, hey, I'm a guy. This is what we do. Yeah. It's very easy to dismiss it. Say, hey, God made me with these desires. It's His fault, So the big part is educating myself, but just as important. So when I look back and I try to go, what was it that broke through? The education and spiritual disciplines. And for some people, they hear spiritual disciplines and go, they hear spiritual punishment. It's not. You work out, right? You're disciplined to work out.
Right.
Are you disciplined in your diet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have disciplines in everything we do. Why is this any different?
Mm-hmm.
Why should we think this is something? Let me just say to every guy listening, stop with the pray for me, pray to take it away. That's not the way it's going to happen. Maybe for 2% of men in the world, God might give you that gift. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason why, in my opinion, right? There's so much we learn and mature through the process that we have to walk through it. There's people we hurt. There's this time to be able to help other people. If God delivers me from something in a split second, how do I help somebody else with that? Mm-hmm. Do I say, hey, pray for this prayer? It worked for me. If it doesn't work for you, I don't know what to tell you, right? Yeah. So walking through the process, as horrible as it is, we learn and we mature and we're able to help other people. But here's the best part about that is it brings you closer to God. So the two things was education for me of understanding what's happening in my brain and identifying the triggers and the traumas, right? And the other part is I need more of you, God. So I'm not just going to beg you to take it away. How about if I just focus on getting closer to you? Like, not to get something from you, but because that's what I should be doing anyway. Yeah. So, like, I started incorporating things like waking up early in the morning and spending a good amount of time with God in my own way. Whatever that looks like to you is I believe that God leads us, the Spirit leads us in what that looks like. And going on walks. And that brings up the spiritual discipline. So spiritual disciplines could be meditation. That's another word people hear and they think weird. It's not. All right, read the Bible. It's in there. It's okay. It's all right. Solitude and prayer, and I believe physical exercise and, going to the gym and that type of thing. These are all important things that we need to do. And some of those will produce the good dopamine we need, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, and as we kind of wrap up, the piece that is with all of this also includes not being on your own. Because it's the other thing is like, okay, education, how my brain works, how God's designed. Like, again, this is a holistic picture of the spiritual. I mean, there's no, it's only physical and spiritual. It's all of that. So the spiritual side, along with the design side, and even those spiritual disciplines are not just isolated. Okay, me and God praying, solitude, like.
Mentorship is a spiritual discipline.
So much of those disciplines are relational. Accountability, confession, mentorship, like those require relationship with others. We're called to do life together, and so we need this. So we need a podcast to talk about it. We need a brother alongside to talk through those triggers and keep us accountable. We might need counseling or other resources that help us get a bigger picture of how we're wired and what we need to do. Right. So that those spiritual disciplines are both me and God, but also us and God, like together doing this thing.
That accountability absolutely is a necessity. It's not a maybe. It's not an option. I do not believe you can do this without the help of another coach, mentor, somebody to keep you accountable, somebody that could probably relate, and somebody that you trust that you're going to be honest with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So how do we got 3 more of these this month. Yeah. How do we wrap up and set the stage for the rest?
Know that there's hope. Mm-hmm. Know that you could reach out to us. Yeah. You go to menofiron.org and you can email us and we'll definitely respond to you. And honestly, like, say a prayer that is an honest prayer. Mm-hmm. Do you know one time I said a prayer and I said, God, I really don't want to stop this, but can you help me to want to stop this? God wants a genuine relationship. He already knows what you're thinking, right? So why not just pray an honest prayer? And I think immediately the next thing would be, and listen, Men of Iron, we do mentorship. It doesn't have to be through us. If you could find mentorship in your church, a coach, whatever, just do it. Take a step and admit it. I think that would be the first step that I would take.
All right.
Yeah.
And then listen to the podcast next week.
Yeah. listen to the podcast. Listen to this one over again, too, if you have to.
Good.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in to us. I hope you learned something from this. Again, we're passionate about it. We've got other men here that are passionate about it. If you want to talk to us about it, get on menofiron.org and reach out. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Men of Iron podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. At Men of Iron, we exist to change a culture one man at a time, and we'd love to have you partner with us. So go to menofiron.org to see how you can get involved, or donate at menofiron.org/donate.